Hello everyone. Today the topic we are going to discuss is Global Multidimensional Poverty Index, which is also called MPI 2025. Now let's talk about the context. The United Nations Development Programme and the Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative, which is abbreviated as OPHI, released the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index 2025 report titled Overlapping Hardships, Poverty and Climate Hazard. We'll talk about MPI 2025 report, what it is. The MPI, that means Multidimensional Poverty Index, is a global measure of acute poverty that captures multiple deprivations like health, education, and standard of living. Mind you, we have three components here: health, education, and standard of living. Beyond income poverty, we consider health here, we consider education here, and we consider standard of living. It is published by, as we have already mentioned, it is published by UNDP and Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative. And this report has been released since 2010. Now let's talk about a launch. The global MPI was first introduced in 2010, that we have already discussed here, by the name of Human Development Report, covering over 100 developing countries that year. What is the aim? To publish MPI, to assess who is poor, how they are poor, and how poverty overlap with deprivation, thereby guiding evidence-based policy making aligned with Sustainable Development Goal number 1, which is no poverty. Next, what are the key trends in Global Multidimensional Poverty Index 2025, which is recently released? Number first trend, global poverty prevalence. This year, MPI cover 109 countries and finds that 1.1 billion people, which marks around 18%, they live in acute multidimensional poverty. That means they are lacking somewhere in education, as we have already discussed, health, and standard of living, indicating persistent global deprivation despite post-pandemic recovery efforts. Number two, severity of poverty. Nearly 43.6% of the poor people, which is around 500 million, are in severe poverty, meaning that they are deprived in at least half of MPI indicators which are health, education, and standard of living, showing the depth of deprivation in vulnerable regions. The third key trend would be children bear the greatest burden. Though children constitute only 33% of the global population, but they represent 51% of all multidimensionally poor, which is truly alarming, underscoring how children malnutrition and lack of schooling perpetuate intergenerational poverty. We have another key point here, which is number 4. Middle income countries has hidden epicenters. Surprisingly, 740 million poor people, that means nearly two-thirds of the global poor, reside in middle income countries, revealing the inadequate of income based classification in capturing real deprivation. Number 5th would be regional concentration of poverty. We have some areas like sub Saharan Africa, South Asia, they both together account for 83% of the global poverty, with sub Saharan African alone home to 49.2% of the world poor, emphasizing geographical inequality. The six key features: rural dominance. In poverty distribution is staggering. 83.5% of the multidimensional poor lives in rural areas. That means in village areas. Even though these regions house just 55% of total population, highlighting infrastructure and service deficit. This is truly alarming. The next key features: climate poverty nexus. Nearly 80% of world's poor live in area exposed to at least one climate hazard such as drought, flood, extreme heat, creating a double burden of deprivation and environmental risk. The most important key factor would be stagnation in post-pandemic progress. The report, the MPI reports, Multidimensional Poverty Index report, notes slowed poverty reduction post COVID-19, with many countries experiencing stagnant or reversed progress due to inflation, conflict, and climate disruption. So these are the key trends. We have covered global poverty prevalence, severity of poverty. Next, we had discussed about the children are the most susceptible to MPI. Next, we have discussed multi-country, multi-income countries are acting as a epicenter. We have regional concentration of poverty like Sahara, Sub-Sahara, South Asia countries. Next, we have discussed climate poverty nexus, where we emphasized the place which is affected by the climate hazard are at a greater risk of MPI. Next, we have discussed about the stagnation in post-pandemic progress. We have discussed about how slowed poverty reduction post COVID-19 affected the MPI index 2025. Next, we'll talk about India and the global MPI 2025. What is India doing in order to eliminate MPI or reduce MPI, especially its indicator like health, education, standard of living? Now discuss about that. In India, we have witnessed massive poverty reduction, as we all know. India achieved a remarkable decline in multidimensional poverty from 1%, which was marked in 2005-6, to 16.4% in 2019 to 21, lifting over approximately 400 million people. The data is most important out of deprivation, marking one as the fastest reduction globally. Next sector India is working upon: child-centric poverty. Despite broad progress, child poverty remains severe, particularly in nutrition, sanitation, cooking fuel, and housing, which indicates that there is persistent intergenerational deprivation challenge are still there. India has climate exposure problem. Nearly 99% of India's poor live in climate vulnerable regions, frequently exposed to heat waves, flood, and air pollution, linking poverty eradication to environmental sustainability. The next is policy relevance. India MPI success reflect targeted welfare scheme like PM Awas Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Swachh Bharat Mission. Everybody is aware about that. Ujjwala Mission, Jal Jeevan, which is directly address multidimensional uh, deprivation in housing, sanitation, and energy. Now let's talk about the challenges highlighted. Rural urban disparity. India is facing this issue very prominently. More than 83% of the multidimensionally poor reside in rural areas, where gaps in healthcare, education, and infrastructure persist despite rapid urban growth. We have already discussed this point. Climate induced vulnerability. The poor face repeated climate shocks such as drought, flood, undermining livelihood, and reversing development gains in climate sensitive areas. We have examples like Vidarbha in Maharashtra and uh, many other areas like in Rajasthan. The next challenges is data deficit, outdated, obsolete, and fragmented household level data, limit effective policy evaluation, and hinder real time monitoring of sustainable development goal progress across state. We have next challenges. Sorry, gender and child deprivation, persistent gender inequality and child malnutrition, restrict over human development with women and child bearing the heaviest poverty burden. We have next challenge is limited fiscal capacity. Many states struggle with budgetary constraints and limited fiscal autonomy, restricting long term investment in social protection and climate adaptation. What should be the policy reforms and recommendation? Let's talk about it. We should integrate poverty and climate policies. We should adopt climate resilient poverty strategies combining green infrastructure, adaptive welfare, and disaster preparedness for vulnerable communities. We should localize data monitoring. We should develop district level MPI dashboard to enable real time data collection, evidence based policies, and precise targeting of welfare interventions. India should invest in green livelihood. We should expand eco jobs in renewable energy, organic farming, and circular economy, linking sustainability with employment generation. India should maintain global finance support, mobilize climate finance and concessional aid from global platform to support developing nation managing dual crisis of poverty and climate change. We should child and gender sensitive intervention. We should strengthen program focusing on the nutrition, clean fuels, education and maternal health that ensures inclusive and intergenerational poverty reduction. Now we will move to the conclusion. The Global MPI 2025 underscores that poverty today is as much about climate vulnerability as deprivation itself. India's rapid poverty reduction offers hope, but the rising climate threat demands integrated climate resilient poverty policies. Future strategies must link social justice with environmental sustainability, ensuring no one is left behind in a warming world. So let's sum up the news. So what was the topic? Topic was Global Multidimensional Poverty Index, which is abbreviated as Global Multi Poverty Index, GMPI. 2025 has been released. It is released by UNDP plus Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative, also called as OPHI. We have indicators, primarily health, education, and living standard. We have subheading like health, we have nutrition, health, child mortality. Then we had talked about MPI reports in global perspective and India perspective. We have discussed what are the key trends in Global Multidimensional Poverty Index 2025, which include global poverty prevalence, severity of poverty, uh, gender, children bear the greatest burden, middle income countries as a epicenter, regional concentration of poverty, climate, the most important climate poverty nexus, which is also a part of uh, India, India's problem, and of course post-pandemic progress, which is considered as slow. Then we had discussed about the India and the global MPI 2025. There's a good news in that India has witnessed the remarkable decline in multidimensional poverty. However, we have also witnessed some child-centered poverty due to the nutrition, sanitation, cooking, fuel, and housing. Then, of course, climate poverty nexus. We had discussed about uh, uh, in regards with MPI. Then, with respect to India, we have highlighted some challenges that we are facing. Then we had discussed about the policy reforms and recommendation that India should adopt in order to get away with the poverty. Then finally, we discussed of the conclusion. So I hope you like this video, you enjoyed this video. All the best. Keep smiling.